Just to say, my name is Martin Hamilton, Director of Leeds Civic Trust. Welcome to everyone listening today. As usual, we'll be doing a recording of this and we'll be uploading it onto my YouTube channel so people can watch afterwards if they've not been able to watch today. I know a few people are working and aren't able to tune in. As I say, this is the fourth, I think, in a series of conversations we're having this year with people based in the city or with a connection to the city who I think have interesting things to say about the city's development in the next few years. So Sinead, I think probably the easiest thing is to go straight over to you and ask you just to say a little bit about yourself, about your role with Channel 4, and we'll take it from there. So could you say a little bit of introduction?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, Martin, and apologies again, everyone, for keeping you on the line. So my name's Sinead, and I'm Channel 4's first ever Managing Director for Nations and Regions. And it's been my role to lead Channel 4's charge outside of London. So since its inception, really, Channel 4 has been a very London-centric organisation. It holds its hands up and says that. So it in recent years has had a sales team based in Manchester, but other than that, everything happened in the one building in Westminster in London. And for various reasons decided that wasn't going to make us fit for the future, so undertook quite a big strategic shift to open a national headquarters outside of London and 2 creative hubs. And after a bidding process, Leeds became home to our new national HQ. So my role really is to oversee those offices, but more importantly, to make sure that by 2023, we're spending 50% of our programming budget outside of London. And so I guess me and my team spend our time working out what might be the barriers to that happening and what can we do about them, and how can we work with other broadcasters to grow the independent production community outside of London as much as possible. Because I think the thing of interest with Channel 4 is Channel 4 doesn't make any of its own programs. It buys them, commissions them from suppliers across the country. And so in terms of potential barriers to that growth, things like we need to have as many strong production companies outside London as possible, and we need to play a role in helping them to grow and to win more business. We need to have brilliant program makers and people who are, the crew or the picture editors. We need to have all the skills outside of London in the right numbers and to the highest possible standard, so that's never a barrier. You can't say, well, I'm not going to commission that program from there because they just don't have the talent. So things like training and skills and things like that are a large part of what I do. So that's really in the main and very briefly what my role is. And I only joined Channel 4 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I joined Channel 4 because this role really, really appealed to me, because I am of the generation who had to go to London to grow their career. You can tell from my accent that I'm not a native Londoner. And I think that, that shouldn't be the case. That is a massive barrier to loads of people. Not everyone can afford to go to London to take that chance. And to, when you're starting out in any industry, your cost of living, it's very hard to pay London kind of rates with entry salaries. And so I really thought what Channel 4 was doing was absolutely the game changer that was needed for the creative sector. And I thought, wow, what a chance. So that's how I left the BBC after 21 odd years and came to Channel 4 and crucially came to Yorkshire.
Yeah. So, maybe you could just say a little bit about why Leeds was chosen specifically. There was obviously a process that a number of cities bid for. Our colleagues across the Pennines, I think, were part of that process, or the other places in the south. But so, what was it about Leeds? What is it about Leeds, would you say, that makes it the best bet, if you like, for the national headquarters for Channel 4?
So the decision to come to Leeds predated my joining the company, but what I do know is every major city in the UK bid for the national headquarters. So, I mean, I think Channel 4 was blown away at the level of interest and at the level of work that cities put into the bid process. And I think what happened with Leeds was it was just such a strong bid. Roger Marsh, now Sir Roger, really took time to understand what Channel 4 was about, what was the ethos of Channel 4, what made Channel 4 different from other broadcasters, and what the benefits would be to Channel 4 if they did choose Leeds City Region. But more importantly, the Leeds bid encompassed Bradford with all its diversity and strength, and it involved everyone you could possibly want it to involve. So there was the LEP, there was the council, but then the unis and education establishments were involved. Independent production companies who are already based in this area got involved. So it immediately showed us that the desire to work collaboratively and not sort of in a siloed way was there. And we knew that, you know, working in partnership is the key to our success, and it's key to what we want to achieve. So to have all those collaborations and partnerships already in place, and for them to be welcoming us into that with open arms was just a major plus for us. And you know, we've been shown nothing but support since we did make the move, and you know, working together. Obviously, COVID has had a big impact on many independent production companies, and the LEP and others have stepped in to try to provide support for that, and we've been working on that. So it really feels like there's a strong understanding of the potential and a massive desire to work together to achieve it, and that was apparent right from the word go.
People will be familiar with the chosen building, the Majestic, which you know, you're not there yet, but I understand later this summer, you'll be moving into that wonderful building. What was the attraction of that particular building?
It's just such an iconic building, and it's so funny for me as someone who's only moved to the region over the past couple of years. Pretty much everyone I met has got a story about that building. Most of them are not repeatable. It's had quite a colourful past. But I think that sense of it being a landmark building, a building with character, a building with history, a building that tells a story about a place, is right up Channel 4's. It's a very Channel 4 thing, and you know, there's a practical aspect. It's one of the first things you see when you walk out of the train station. We'll hopefully at some point have a giant number 4 in the vicinity, the way we have in London. But it's just. It's a building with a story. It's been beautifully restored, and I cannot wait for us to move in.
What are you looking at date wise for that?
Well, I'm hopeful within the next sort of 6 weeks. You know, the thing that it'll be ready. We're just doing our tech checks and things at the moment. It's the pandemic guidelines that may scupper a full opening of it in the short term, but it's looking marvelous. We're taking 3 floors of that building.
Yeah. No, it is a wonderful building, and I had a look around recently. A group of us went around as it was being reconstructed, because it was essentially a reconstruction after the fire, of course. And to see the finished article, you know, it really is spectacular. So, what will actually happen just give me an example of a couple of people or a couple of teams that will work in there, and the sorts of work that they will do. Just give me a couple of examples.
Well, our Leeds office is going to be quite substantial. We've got pretty much we've got about 160 people at the moment, some of whom have never met a Channel 4 person yet, of course, because they joined during lockdown. So they've been working remotely since day one. And that number's going to go up to about 200, 250, I think, over the next 6 to 12 months. But we've got a cross section of the whole business. So it's really lovely. It's like our building in London is on Horseferry Road. And so what we've created in Leeds is like a mini Horseferry Road. So there'll be about a third of the numbers of the London office, but there will be everyone in there from me and my team, the team responsible for all of Channel 4's training and skills initiatives. We've got finance teams, we've got sales teams, we've got content management teams, so the kind of people who keep us on air on our various channels. And crucially, we've got commissioners. So that's the big thing for us in terms of representation, making sure we're reflecting the UK on screen. It's having the people who make the decisions about which programmes get made based in this building. And in that regard, we've got people from across a whole range of genres. So we've got our head of sport based in Leeds, we've got our head of drama based in Leeds, we've got factual commissioners, current affairs commissioners. We've just got like it's like a mini Channel 4. We've got a bit of everything there, and I think that's really exciting.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you talked about the sort of the overarching ethos of this move, if you like, and the move to be, I guess, less London centric. I mean, in practical terms, as far as the viewers are concerned, how do you hope that is going to manifest itself? I mean, what will people notice that is different, you think?
So I think if you have all the people who are making decisions about what goes on air based in the same building, the chances are they're living in the same city, they're traveling to work pretty much in the same way, they're probably buying their lunch in the same place, probably going to the same bars of an evening, and I'm speaking very generalistically and in broad brushstrokes, but more or less, there will be a bunch of people who have very similar life experiences and who are mixing in very similar social circles. So the flavour of what they commission is likely to be of a type. And that's great. Channel 4 has been very successful and has programs that are, of course, representative of the UK as a whole. But the thinking with our Out of London strategy, which we call For All the UK, is, well, if you have people with that decision-making power based in other parts of the UK, they're going to have a different life experience. They're going to be embedded in different communities. They're going to have access to different stories. They're going to have their finger on a different kind of pulse. And they're just going to come at things from a different perspective and with a different angle. And when they feed that through the decision-making process for what programs to put on air, you're going to get a different flavour of things, and that is likely to be much more representative of the UK as a whole, purely on the basis of they will be building relationships with independent production companies that are based in all parts of the UK. And from that, we think we'll get programs that just feel a bit more of the UK as a whole. Now, there's a big lead-in time for programs, and so it's not something that, Channel 4 has got a remit, and it's got a purpose, and it's got its own style and its own flavour. So this is not about a radical click your fingers and everything on air is different, but this is a much more subtle way of evolving the channel over time. So I think you'll see, probably already with Packed Lunch coming on air Monday to Friday from Leeds Dock, you'll start hearing accents that are a bit more like your accent. It provides opportunities for pundits and personalities based in the north to be on TV on a much more regular basis, and that's an obvious example. But equally, we are now commissioning way more programs outside of London, and that I think, one of the things we measure ourselves on year is whether our audience sees their own lives reflected back at them from our output, and I would expect that score to go up.
That's really interesting, and I mean, I guess the trick is that you don't replace a London-centric view with a Leeds-centric view, or a, that actually it's diverse voices, but it's not just replacing one set of voices with another set of voices that are also very, of the same mindset. And I guess that's part of the idea about reaching out across the United Kingdom, and the structure that you've gone for with these other hubs as well. I guess that's part of the purpose of that, isn't it?
Yeah, so we also opened a creative hub in Glasgow and one in Bristol, and we formed really close relationships with screen agencies in Northern Ireland and in Scotland and in Wales. And when we're holding events for independent production companies, we include Cardiff and we include Belfast. So we're trying to spread ourselves right across the UK, because for us, the great prize is brilliant programs.
Can you say a little bit about the sort of production capability in Leeds? You mentioned that Channel 4 commissions all of its work. It's all done via external organisations. Can you say a bit about the production capability and within Leeds particularly, and how you're engaging with that?
Yeah, I mean, and I think the production community in Leeds was another reason why Channel 4 decided to come to Leeds. So I think it was really obvious there was a really positive scene here already, but one that we thought had the potential to grow further. So there's some brilliant companies here, like Roland Productions, True North, Candor, Duck Soup. So there were a variety of companies that make programs across a range of genres, and a lot of them already provide content for Channel 4. But we thought, when we were making the decision on which city to come to, is there somewhere we can go to where all the recipe ingredients are there, but if we put more effort in, the end result could be bigger and better. So I think that's part of it. And then what we're doing with independent production companies in this area is and the pandemic has knocked a little bit of the face-to-face side of things on the head temporarily, but we're building better relationships purely by proximity. So having commissioners based here means independent production companies here don't have to trek down to London on a train, leaving at the crack of dawn and getting the expense of those train tickets just for a short meeting where they're pitching an idea which may result in a no. It's much more of an ongoing conversation between independent producers and between our commissioners, and it's less high stakes, because I think if you're focused on traveling somewhere for a yes or a no, it can be a bit sort of do or die, whereas actually if you're seeing people much more regularly and you have that ongoing relationship, better ideas come from it because you can shape them together. Yeah. And we're also we've got an indie growth fund where we partially invest in independent production companies, and we have been doing more of that in the nations and regions. And so the likes of Anna Hall's company Candor and the drama company Duck Soup have now joined the Indie Growth Fund. So we're working really closely with them to help them achieve their ambitions and their full potential. So I think we do a lot, and I think some brilliantly creative companies in this region, and we're really proud to be working with them.
I mean, you talked about skills being an important part of your remit. I'm interested in terms of how the channel can support and develop careers in broadcasting, develop skills with young people based in the city, in our schools and colleges. And could you say a bit about any plans you have on that front?
Yeah, so I suppose our skills efforts divide into two categories. The first is entry-level opportunities, where we are trying to give people tangible first steps into the industry. And I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. The second is about people who are already working within the sector, helping them to enhance their skills, to get new skills, to grow their careers so that they're getting off the first few rungs of the ladder and are able to have really full and really rich careers in the city that they choose to live. In terms of entry-level opportunities, we have always said one of the great goals for us in all of this is finding ways to get people into our industry who perhaps wouldn't have had the opportunity or would maybe have thought it wasn't for them. And you know what I said earlier about, you know, my generation had to go to London, and that's a massive barrier for people. So what can we do that means that that doesn't have to happen? So we have apprentice programs, which we put a lot of effort into to making sure that they are as good as they can be, and that cuts right across the business. So we'll have sales apprentices, we'll have marketing apprentices, and so on. And for the first time, the last group of apprentices, some are just starting now, are being recruited now, but our ones who started a couple of months ago are all based only in the nations and regions. So we're trying to put our money where our mouth is in terms of, if we're saying we want to grow our presence in the nations and regions, we really need to back that up. So we've got a lot of those are based in Leeds. We've got a production training scheme where it's really world-class training. Thousands of young people apply to it, and they get to spend a year based with independent production companies, but with training provided by Channel 4. And the success rate of the careers that those young people go on to have is really quite astounding. Again, for the first time, we've made that a purely nations and regions scheme. So companies in Leeds are in the mix there, and they've taken production trainees in. And then one that I'm really excited about, which is just being shortlisted at the minute, is a kind of a pilot scheme for us. It's something very different, and it's only open to young people in the Yorkshire region, and it's going to provide paid placements, training and placements for, in the first instance, 6 young people to actually come and be based within Channel 4 itself, so not with the independent production companies. And that's it's called Content Creatives. We're doing it with Sharp Futures, who are a Manchester-based social enterprise company with a real track record in getting people into the sector, quite often from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, and giving them the training and the practical work experience to succeed. And that's exciting for me because one of the new parts of the business in Channel 4 that exists only in Leeds is something called 4 Studios. And so it is all about short form content that's made for social media, and how that can be monetized and how that can help bring an audience through to some of our longer form content, excuse me. And so the new trainees will be based within that team, so they'll be actually making stuff themselves, and we're excited about that because we think we'll learn as much from it as the young people will, because as you know and I know, quite often some of the most creative stuff is being made by 17 and 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds who have no formal training but just get the technology and get the storytelling and get the humor, and so we're hoping to pick their brains. So that's open for 18 to 24-year-olds in only in the Yorkshire region. So we're doing a lot of things, and we're trying to make sure they all match up. But we are mainly focusing on talent in the nations and regions, and of course Leeds as our home now benefits significantly from that.
That sounds really exciting. Lots of strings to that particular bow by the sounds of it. Could I move us on to something a bit more specific relating to the city and its cultural ambitions, if you like. So Leeds in 2023 will be holding a year-long festival of culture. Would have been hopefully the European Festival, European Capital of Culture. That obviously for obvious reasons didn't happen. So this is the city sort of banging the cultural drum of its own accord in 2023. Do you hope to get involved in that festival at all? And do you have any sort of particular ways in which you might get involved?
Yeah, we definitely want to be a part of that, and I had a really good chat with Cully last week. And it's probably too early at the minute to say what our involvement will be, but we're looking at things that might happen in City Square, because obviously we're going to be neighbours. We're looking at things in terms of providing opportunities on the training and skills front, because what I'm interested in really is legacy and making long-standing change. But yes, we've arrived at the right time, haven't we? What a brilliant thing to be part of. And you know, I've seen some of the plans, and they're really exciting. So yes, we are going to be definitely wanting to be part of the year-long activity, but it's a bit early to say exactly what we'll be doing.
That's understandable, but it is an exciting opportunity.
Yeah,
we're also hoping to get involved in different ways, and we're just working through those opportunities at the moment, actually. So yeah, it's really exciting. Could I just sort of go back a little bit to some of the things you've been talking about, particularly maybe about young people and skills, and us learning from them as much as it being the other way around, and maybe sort of, I don't know if you have any reflections as a channel about the way people have consumed television in the last 12 to 18 months, you know, with COVID being in the background, and whether there's any learnings that can be taken from that about the approach that you'll be taking as a broadcaster in the future. Is there anything that sort of seems to have changed that you think will continue to endure into the future in terms of sort of habits, the way people consume TV?
Well, like all broadcasters, we saw our viewing figures go up because people watched more TV because there was not much else to do. But even within that, our share of viewers went up disproportionately. So yes, everyone benefited, but we had an even bigger share of that pie, if you like.
You know what that is?
Well, no, I think we worked hard to have really good programs in difficult circumstances, and I think we probably attracted a few more viewers. So people who wouldn't traditionally have watched us ended up watching us and then stuck with us. I mean, that's a very simplistic view of it, but there will be an element that it is as simple as that. But of course, we all know that loads of people streamed content. So, you know, I think at one point, me and my family thought we'd completed Netflix. We'd watched so much this time last year, and we have our All4 streaming service, and so it's made us really think about what we can do to make that as good as it can be, and how we can grow that, and it has seen, again, unsurprisingly, massive growth in the past year, and from that it gives you the opportunity to see really what the viewers' habits are and what they like watching, and that can influence the choice of programs you put on that. It changed for us. We wouldn't have box set things before. We would have just uploaded the programs to the All4 player after they'd been transmitted. And I guess the pandemic has been one of the factors in us changing our approach to that. So our big drama at the start of the year, It's a Sin by Russell T Davies, after the first episode went out on Channel 4, we put all the episodes on All4, so people could binge watch that. It was a hard binge watch. I did it with my partner over a weekend, and you know, it's not necessarily the best example, but millions of people did binge watch that. So I guess
why does that make? Could I just ask, why does that make sense? I'm curious. Why does it make sense commercially to put everything on the platform at once?
Well, you are. It's a mix. Well, we have adverts on the platform as well.
Yes.
So we are publicly owned but commercially funded. So we have ad revenue, whether it goes on linear TV or whether it is a digital play out. And interestingly, with It's a Sin, it's Channel 4 TV play out held up, so it didn't cannibalize. Yeah. And that won't always be the case, but a lot of this is test and experimentation for us. But the viewing figures held up. So I think we're moving to a world like all commercially funded broadcasters, where you're trying to think, if people are watching less TV in general, I know the pandemic was different, but you know, the figures for people watching linear TV have declined over the past decade, people are going to have to find new revenue sources, and properly monetizing streaming is obviously key to people's future plans.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? It's and I can see if the net result is that more people are watching the program that you've invested in, and that's the aim. That's ultimately the best measure, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't always prove that would have been the case, but that kind of has to be the prime aim, doesn't it? Yeah. I've just got one more thing I want to ask you, Sinead, before we finish, and that's just a little bit about the city. So Leeds Civic Trust is a charity that we've been around for 60 odd years now, and essentially we're interested in making people proud of the city, making the city better. So what are your sort of impressions of Leeds? I don't know how familiar you were with Leeds before you took the role at Channel 4. What are your sort of general, what do you like about the city? Are there things you think we need to do better on? Just general thoughts.
I think Leeds is a cracking city, and I wasn't that familiar with it. I'd obviously been to Leeds, but I wasn't that familiar with it. What I like about Leeds is it looks beautiful, it looks invested in, it's got a lovely restaurant and pub scene, so it's a very sociable city, it's a very welcoming city, it's got great retail, and it's got, it seems to have, you know, it has a council that wants it to succeed and seems to be working with business people and business owners rather than entirely separately or sometimes against them. So it's I love it. I love walking around the universities. I just love the vibe. I mean, it's such a very hard thing to try to articulate. But I'm very proud to be working in Leeds. I think it's kind of got a bit of everything. If you could improve the weather, that would be great. But I previously lived in Manchester for the 10 years preceding, and that wasn't great either. So
I always find when you drive over the Pennines, just as soon as you get past the welcome to Lancashire sign, it starts raining. I mean, it's incredible, but the number of times that's happened to me. I'm sure people from the other side say the same as well, but there we are. Sinead, that's been a lovely chat. Thank you really very much for joining us today. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say before we wrap up.
No, just another apology. I'm sorry. Time is precious for everyone, so I'm sorry that I called upon yours and everyone else here.
Don't worry. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining us today. And as I say, we will be putting a recording up on the YouTube channel. We have another conversation coming up later this month with Tom Bridges, who is the head of the Leeds office at Arup's. That'll be focusing on the future of the city centre. So we'll be sending an email around about that for those of you that joined us today and those of you that are listening on YouTube as well. But once again, Sinead, thank you very much. Hope the rest of the day goes well for everyone, and good. Is it afternoon? Not quite. Good morning. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Martin.